Mark opens the door to his apartment. 8 in the evening. Kids' toys all over the floor. The ones he's been promising for a week to help put away. His daughter runs to him shouting, "Daddy!" From the kitchen, his wife says without turning around, "Can you take out the trash?" In a normal state, Mark would hear two things: a child's joy and a request from a wife who's worn out after her day. But Mark isn't in a normal state right now. For 4 months, he's worked 12-hour days, slept badly, hasn't seen his friends, and wakes every morning with a tightness in his chest. And in that state, he hears something completely different. He hears, "You're useless again. Something's wrong with you again." He explodes. He yells at his wife. His daughter freezes. Half an hour later, he's sitting in the bathroom, staring at the floor, thinking, "I've turned into some kind of monster. This isn't who I am. Where is this coming from?" And in that moment, he's standing right next to one of the most important truths about human life, and doesn't recognize it. Today, I want to walk through that truth slowly and honestly, because it touches almost everyone listening right now. And whether you understand it changes a great deal in your relationships, your family, who you are around your kids, who you are with yourself. Here's the truth. Chronic stress turns you into a different person. Not briefly irritated, not sharp for a minute. Different, at the level of how you see the world, how you hear people, what you're capable of, and what you're not. And more than that, you may not notice it happening, because the change is gradual, day after day, month after month. At some point, you turn around and find you've become a person you don't recognize, irritable, closed off, suspicious, tired even of the people you love. And almost always, people in this state say the same thing about themselves. "That's just who I am. That's just my personality." It isn't true. It isn't your personality. It's a state your nervous system has lived in so long that you've stopped telling it apart from yourself. Let's look at what's actually going on. Normally, the nervous system runs in 2 modes. There's the safety mode, the body relaxed, breathing deep, attention wide. You see the context, you hear people fully, you can think several steps ahead. And there's the threat mode. The heart speeds up, breathing goes shallow, attention narrows down to whatever could hurt you. That mode has saved humanity 1,000,000 times. Without it, we'd have died out long ago. The problem starts when the threat mode stops switching off, when it's no longer a response to a specific danger, but the background of your existence. That's what chronic stress is. Not a lot on my plate, not tired. It's a situation where your nervous system has forgotten what safety looks like. It no longer returns to calm between loads. It lives in defense, permanently. And here's what happens to a person in that mode. The part of the brain responsible for flexible thinking, planning, seeing context, hearing another person, works worse. That's not a moral flaw. It's physiology. Under prolonged stress, the prefrontal cortex literally loses resources. At the same time, the part of the brain that hunts for threat gets stronger. Attention narrows. You start spotting danger faster and seeing the neutral worse. In relationships, it looks like this. Your partner is tired and quiet, and you read not tiredness but rejection. Your child asks for help, and you hear not a request but a reproach. A coworker gives feedback, and you see not information but an attack. This isn't paranoia. It's a nervous system trained to protect. It's doing exactly what it was built for. It's just doing it where it isn't needed. Let me give you another scene. Sarah had always been one of the warmest people her friends knew. She remembered birthdays. She called first. She listened in a way that made a person feel, finally, heard. For 2 years, she cared for her mother, who was slowly dying of a hard illness. At first, Sarah coped. Then she started snapping. Then she stopped answering her friends' messages. Then she noticed she felt nothing when she heard that something had happened to someone close. She just nodded. "Oh, I see." At her mother's funeral, a friend hugged her and broke down crying. And Sarah found inside nothing. No grief, no warmth, not even tiredness, just emptiness. She went to a therapist with one question: "I've become a bad person. What's wrong with me?" The therapist said one thing that set her free. "You haven't become a bad person. Your capacity for compassion is overheated. It's gone into conservation mode. This is reversible. It's called compassion fatigue. It's a real condition, documented in the literature on the psychology of caregiving professions. When a person gives for a long time without recovery, their ability to feel another's pain shuts down. Not because they've grown cold, because otherwise they'd burn out completely. And here's what matters. Sarah wasn't a bad person. She was an exhausted person whom chronic stress had turned into a distortion of herself. And when she began to recover, her warmth came back. Not at once, gradually, but it came back. Because it was never her essence, it was a state. First takeaway. What you call your personality is sometimes a nervous system that hasn't felt safe for too long. That's not a verdict. It's a diagnosis of a state, and a diagnosis points toward the way back. Now, how stress changes relationships. I want you to watch one scene from the outside. A husband and wife at dinner. The husband is quiet. He's tired. An important project fell through at work. He's in no mood to talk. He just wants to sit in silence. The wife, under stress, reads the silence as rejection. "He's ignoring me. He's shut down again. He doesn't love me." Hurt rises in her. She says, "You're not talking to me again." The husband hears a reproach and feels not care but attack. "Here we go again. I just got home. I was only being quiet." He defends himself. "Nothing's ever enough for you." 5 minutes later, they're arguing. Both upset. Both convinced the other ones to blame. But here's what happened. They were both in threat mode, and they weren't talking to each other. Each was talking to their own defense system. Neither heard what was actually said. They heard what their nervous system predicted would be said. This happens in millions of homes every day. Not because people treat each other badly, because they don't know their chronic stress is acting for them, before they even have a chance to think. And worse, every episode like this feeds the stress. The more conflict, the more the nervous system is convinced the world is dangerous, and the harder it'll defend next time. It's a closed loop, and there's almost no way out unless you step out of it consciously. Friends, a quick pause. I know these requests are a little awkward to make, but they matter. If this conversation is reaching you, please give the video a like. It really does help the channel. Thank you. Now, the main thing. How to get out. I want to be concrete. No esoterics. No promises to change your life in 7 days. Just what works and what the research backs up. First, separate the person from the state. It starts with one sentence you have to learn to say to yourself. This isn't who I am. This is the state I'm in right now. It's a subtle but critical difference. When you say, I'm an irritable person, you lock it in as part of yourself. Nothing left to change. When you say, my defense system is activated right now, you see a state as a state. And a state can be regulated. This isn't an excuse. If you yelled at someone you love, apologize. If you hurt them, own it. The responsibility stays yours. But you are not equal to your stress. You are larger than it. Second, check the body's foundation. Chronic stress can't be solved with one nice idea because it's held in place by a physiological mode. You have to start with what that mode rests on. Sleep. Not enough hours, but restorative. If you sleep 7 hours and still wake up wrecked, that's a problem worth addressing. Food. Not correct by some diet's rules, but regular. Stress is often fed by blood sugar swings. Skip breakfast, eat lunch on the run, devour everything at night, and your nervous system never gets a chance to settle. Movement, not sports, movement. 20 minutes of walking a day does more for the nervous system than an hour-long workout once a week. Morning light. It sounds trivial, but it matters enormously. Daylight in the first hour after waking helps regulate your stress hormones across the whole day. All of this is the foundation. Without it, every other practice works weakly. With it, each one works far better. Third, breathing with a longer exhale. This is the simplest and most underrated tool there is. When your exhale is longer than your inhale, you send the brain a safety signal. It works directly, through a physiological mechanism that doesn't depend on your mood or your beliefs. Concretely, a normal inhale through the nose, then a small extra sip of air on top, then a long, slow exhale through the mouth. Do it for 5 minutes, every day. Mornings are best. A Stanford study found that 5 minutes of this breathing a day improves mood and lowers arousal more than mindfulness meditation on the same schedule. Not for years, for the day. But done daily, the effect builds up. Fourth, orienting to safety. When you feel a wave of defensiveness rising inside, stop and do this. Name 5 things you can see around you, 3 sounds you can hear, 2 points of contact where your body meets the world, feet on the floor, back against the chair, and 1 sentence. Right now I'm here. Right now, I don't need to attack or run. It takes 30 seconds, but it gives the brain sensory data to revise its threat forecast. Sometimes that's enough to keep you from snapping. Fifth, a micro pause before you answer. If someone says something that sets off an explosion inside you, don't answer right away. Say something simple. Give me a minute. I want to answer properly, not from defense. This changes relationships because you suddenly show the other person you're not their enemy. You're someone trying to answer honestly, not reactively. At first, it'll feel very strange, especially if your family has spent years used to reacting instantly. But within 2 weeks, you'll notice fewer conflicts. Not because you've gone soft, because you've stopped feeding the spirals. Sixth, social co-regulation. Find one person around whom your body doesn't have to prove you're fine. One is enough. A close friend, a therapist, a support group, a pastor if you're a believer. Someone you can exhale next to. This isn't weakness. It's how the nervous system is built. It recovers faster in the presence of another regulated person than it does alone. Research on social buffering confirms it. The safe presence of another person lowers stress hormones, measurably. Seventh, gratitude as eye training. Not as positive thinking, not as everything's wonderful, as training your attention to see what's still good. Under stress, the brain is tuned to threats. Gratitude is a conscious shift of focus. Not a denial of pain, a widening of sight. Yes, this hurts. And, at the same time, this part works. This part is worth being grateful for. It's simple. Once a day, 3 specific things. Not in general terms. For the warm water in the shower today. For my daughter laughing when I tickled her. For the neighbor who held the door while I carried the bags. It works. Not magically. It works because you're training the brain to see what's there, not only what threatens. Second takeaway, an open heart isn't naivety. It's a nervous system that no longer has to defend itself against every touch of life. And you can return to that state, not at the snap of a finger, gradually. Now to what would leave this whole conversation incomplete if I skipped it. When a person slowly starts coming out of chronic stress, they notice a strange thing. They begin to see other people. Under stress, people are mostly sources of threat or demand. A partner who wants something from you. A coworker you have to compete with. a pedestrian walking too slowly, a child making noise. But as the nervous system recovers, the people around you gradually stop being threats and start becoming people, with their stories, their pains, their own attempts. It's a telling sign. It speaks of recovery more than any number on a heart rate monitor. You start seeing faces again. And with it, something else comes back. The ability to give. Not out of obligation, not as strategy. Out of an inner abundance, because there's room inside again. A tired heart can't love. Not because it's bad, because love is an act that takes resources. When there are none, a person switches into survival. That's not their fault, but it's not their fate either. A human being wasn't made for constant defense. This needs saying plainly. The biology of defense is real, but if it becomes the entire content of a life, a person lives below who they were meant to be. This isn't a moral accusation. It's a statement of fact. You're capable of far more than survival. You're capable of warmth, of joy, of being close without flinching, of a love that doesn't keep score. You can return to that state. And that may be the most hopeful truth in this whole conversation. Under stress, people often tell themselves, everything depends on me. If I loosen my grip, it all falls apart. That's the voice of chronic stress. It's not the truth about life. It's the truth about a nervous system that's forgotten what safety looks like. And sometimes, the deepest turn in a person's life begins with something very simple. The moment they first honestly admit, I'm not the source of all the safety in my life. I can do my part, but I'm not required to be God to myself. That's not surrender. It's a return to the right scale. A person isn't the center of the world, not a machine for withstanding everything. They have limits. And when they admit those limits, they stop breaking against them. The one who made us didn't make us for constant defense, but for life, for relationship, for joy, for the capacity to love. Defense is for surviving danger. Openness is for living. Short summary. Chronic stress isn't a lot on your plate. It's a state where the nervous system has forgotten what safety looks like. What you call your personality is sometimes not personality, but a long state you fell into and got stuck in. Under stress, the brain works worse. It sees threats where there are none, doesn't hear others fully, makes you defend yourself against the people you love. This explains the behavior but doesn't excuse it. The apologies and the responsibility stay yours. The way out runs through the body. Sleep, food, movement, breathing with a longer exhale, micropauses. Without the physiological foundation, the rest works weakly. The sign of recovery isn't numbers. It's that you see faces again. Compassion comes back when there's recovery. You don't have to stay the person chronic stress made you. You can return to an open heart. It's a road, not a switch, but it's real. If you're not subscribed and this format speaks to you, subscribe. There will be more calm, to-the-point conversations like this here. And a like, if it's not too much trouble. And if you're thinking of someone right now, someone close who it seems to you has been living in that defense mode for a long time, send it to them. Until next time.